All right, so moving on, we've got, so you guys probably know Nina Turner, who was a campaign co-chair of Bernie Sanders, one of his strongest, most passionate voices, but also an incredible force in her own right in terms of progressive Democrats. She's running in an Ohio special election in a Democratic primary. All indications have been that Nina is way out ahead of the field. Of course, there are a lot of people here in Washington who do not want to see Nina Turner come to Congress. And what's interesting, too, is that, so this is a seat that was vacated because Marcia Fudge ended up getting an administration position because Jim Clyburn pushed her to get an administration position within the Biden administration. So now, as they're coming down the pike and Nina is way ahead, guess who's weighed in to try to stop her momentum and guarantee an establishment-friendly voice ultimately gets into that seat. And by the way, it's a heavily Democratic seat, so whoever wins the primary very likely to end up in Congress. The one and only Jim Clyburn decided to jump in and endorse Nina's main opponent, a woman named Shontel Brown, who's also been endorsed by people like Hillary Clinton, the usual cast of characters. And, you know, first of all, let me say that this New York Times piece was really obnoxious. Even the way they frame Nina as like a Bernie Sanders acolyte, as if she doesn't stand on her own 2 feet. She had a long political career before Bernie Sanders
in Ohio,
jumped up and ran for president in Ohio. She secured a lot of local endorsements there because people this is a Cleveland area seat, people there have known her, have worked with her outside of her national brand and image. She's long lived in Cleveland. This is her home. This is where, you know, her family is, all of that stuff. So Jim Clyburn, just as he jumped into the presidential race to rescue Joe Biden's failing campaign, and really that was the moment where everything flipped, he's trying to pull off the same magic here in Ohio. And the question is it going to work? Now, of course, when he endorsed Biden, it was going into the South Carolina primary. Jim Clyburn is representative from South Carolina, so he has a lot more clout there than you would expect him to have in Ohio. But still, very interesting and troubling development. Nina has made a lot of it. She's raised over $100,000 in one day after Clyburn. I think we have that tweet or tear sheet that we can throw up there on the screen.
Dave Weigel's tweet.
After Clyburn jumps in, here Dave Weigel saying she raised $100,000 plus in the wake of Hillary's endorsement, and then did it again in the wake of the Clyburn endorsement last night. And there's a quote from Nina's campaign. What we saw overnight was people at the grassroots rallying to support Nina Turner against corporate interests. So I guess thank you, Jim Clyburn, for helping with Nina Turner's fundraising totals.
Yeah, and we don't know exactly where the polls stand. So as of a month ago, this is the latest one we have, we can put it up there on the screen from WKYC Studios, which is that Nina Turner actually led the Democratic Party race in Ohio with support from 50% of likely voters. So 50% obviously is a large plurality there, much bigger than her nearest opponent, and makes it so that, look, polling in these types of districts is always hard. It's local. These things can change. Jim Clyburn overnight changed the entire electorate of the state of South Carolina for the Democratic primary, so I don't want to discount it. I have no idea, frankly. The real question is this: how much cachet does Jim Clyburn hold amongst the national black electorate versus the South Carolina black electorate?
Right.
Because what was it? 1/4 of late break black voters in the South Carolina Democratic primary said that Clyburn's endorsement was the definitive thing that moved them over the edge for Biden. What is it in Ohio? I have no clue. I can't tell you. I mean, I'm going to say it's probably not the same, but it could certainly be still something. Look, he is a pillar of the black community. He's, been an activist and worked in it for a very long time. So the real question is how much sway and cachet that he has within that community to move the needle one way or the other. We truly just have no idea.
Yeah, and I think his influence certainly strongest in South Carolina.
Yeah, it's huge.
And then next you would say regionally in the South.
Probably in the South, like Alabama. Right.
How much sway does he have in Ohio? Hard to say. But like you said, I wouldn't want to discount it. And clearly, I think what this is really a sign of is the fact that the establishment of the Democratic Party is going all in to do whatever they can to block Nina Turner. You almost wonder if Obama might get his hands dirty and get involved in this race.
Would not surprise
that would
He's
be
pretty
one,
nearby. He could do it.
That would be one that, that one really would be a major issue if he were to decide to get involved here. And that poll that you cited, which was about a month ago, and by the way, I think it was an internal campaign poll from Nina Turner, so you always have to take those with a little bit of grain of salt. But that being said, it showed Nina at 50 and her next closest competitor, Shontel Brown, who was just endorsed by Clyburn, at 15. So Up until recently, Nina Turner was running away with this race. There's just a few weeks left to go before voters actually head to the polls here. The other thing that's worth pointing out is, like, why is it that they're so concerned about Senator Turner making it into the U.S. House of Representatives? Well, as David Sorotos pointed out, Clyburn is a top recipient of Big Pharma cash. $1 million of campaign cash from Big Pharma, one of the top recipients in the House in terms of Big Pharma cash. Oh, and by the way, Nina Turner just recently released an ad promoting Medicare for All. So when you want to know why they're so adamant against people like Nina Turner ever getting into the House of Representatives, you got to follow the money, right? The donors who have contributed to him, who have helped to bolster his career, they detest people like Nina Turner. They detest Medicare for All. They will do everything in their power they possibly can to stop any champions and advocates of that program from ascending to any heights of power. So, not a coincidence that one of the largest recipients of Big Pharma cash comes in here close to the last minute to try to stop Nina Turner.
I think it's a confluence of both, which is both that he gets a lot of that. I think he's a legitimate believer. I do want to say that. I don't know how much, but I think he really believes in this like moderate lane, Dem party. Clyburn, from everything I've read, and Lucky and more, was like all in on Joe Biden because he thought he was the only one who could win the presidential election. And I think he views the Sanders left as an existential threat to Democratic Party, the ability of the Democratic Party to win votes. Now, look, I think he's incorrect in some respects.
He views them as an existential threat to his base of power.
Oh, for sure.
That's what that's really about.
Well,
right?
in a way, it's true, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is both Big Pharma, and I think he's a true believer. It's one of these things where it all comes intersecting together, and then it makes it so that, you know, if you ever do want to depart from the aims or whatever of your true goals, then things could become a little bit dicey. So yeah, I mean, I think Clyburn very, very much views himself in his old age as like holding on to the legacy of a lot of the old Democratic brand of the 1990s and just wants to do everything in his power in order to make sure that doesn't happen. It is pretty amazing, though, to see like him, Hillary come in. And like you said, don't discount it. If Obama gets in, that's bad for Nina Turner. He's probably the most popular Democrat in the entire country, even more so than Joe Biden, which is kind of amazing because he's a sitting president of the United States. But it just goes to show you how much power these people can have if they intercede. Like we said, though, if Nina does still win despite this, and they always risk looking like fools, if they go all in and she wins against those odds, then she's got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it even harder for them in the House.
And that's in Lucky, that was what he weighed with Biden.
Yeah.
He wanted to endorse Biden, and he was not planning on endorsing anything else, according to Amy Parnes and Jonathan Allen, both really good reporters who we interviewed, and that book was quite fascinating.
Love that book.
And his hesitation was that the Biden campaign was such like dog shit that he was like, I don't know if this guy can win.
Yeah.
And I don't want to endorse a candidate who's just a total failure. So at the last minute, when it was basically like, all right, I got no choice here, or else Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee, that's when he ultimately decides to jump in. So you're right. He recognizes he's wary of endorsing candidates who can't actually win because, then it's embarrassing. Then you're sort of showing that that you don't have the power that you're trying to project. That cuts down on like the influence and the sway that you're able to hold with other candidates and within the caucus, et cetera. So this is a big risk for him, for Hillary, for all of the Democratic establishment types. And you can see what a threat they feel that Nina Turner and this wing of the party is to their power base and, you know, the sort of like establishment of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So very interesting
Seriously.
Development there. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.